Hi guys, you all are welcome to today's class. Today we'll be talking about classification of living things, which can also be called taxonomy. Now, what is taxonomy? Taxonomy is a branch of science which is concerned with a system of naming, grouping, and classifying of living organisms. This can also be called classification of living organisms, or you say taxonomy. It's a branch of science. Now, let's go to the topic in detail. This system of classifying living organisms was being first proposed by a Swiss scientist called Cavonley. Or probably when you Latinize the name, you are going to call it Carolus Linus. Cavonley classified living organisms from the year 1707 until the year 1778. In his pattern of classification, he classified plants in the year 1753 and that of animals in the year 1758. In his system of classification, Cavonley grouped every living organism or placed every living organism into 7 groups, where we have the kingdom as group 1, the second group is division for plants and phyla for animals, the third group is the class, the fourth group is the order, the fifth group is the family, the sixth group is the genus, and the seventh group is the species. Aside from this pattern, Carolus Linus or probably Cavonley also brought about a system of giving every living organism 2 names. The first name is called the genus name, or you say the generic name, and the second name, which always begin with a small letter, is called the specific or the species name. This system of giving every living organism 2 names is called the binomial system of nomenclature. It was also being proposed by Cavonley. Now here every living organism is given 2 names. We take some examples. A sugarcane, the generic and the species name of a sugarcane is the Saccharum officinarum. That of a lion is Pancheraleo. That of an orange is Citrus sinensis. That of a rat is Rattus rattus. That of man, that is human being in general, is called Homo sapiens. So on and so forth. This system of giving every living organism 2 names is being called the binomial system of nomenclature. Now, Carolus Linus also classified living organisms into 2 kingdoms, where he had the kingdom for animals and the kingdom for plants. But through this method, some single cell organisms were not able to fit in properly, and as such, they are being treated separately. Then altogether, other scientists had a proper deliberation on this, and they decided to classify or place every living organism into 5 kingdoms, where we have the kingdom Monera, the kingdom Protista, the kingdom Fungi, the kingdom Plant, and the kingdom Animal. Now let's work on kingdom Monera to be precise. The kingdom Monera, every living organism which can be found in the kingdom Monera, they have what we call prokaryotic cell. A cell without an organized nucleus, a cell without the mitochondria, a cell without a proper chloroplast or chlorophyll, and all of them are single cell organisms. They have just 1 cell. And please don't forget, we are still talking about the kingdom Monera. The cells are prokaryotic. They do not have an organized cell membrane. They do not have the cell wall. The cell wall are not being made of cellulose. Rather, they are being made of the polysaccharides and so on and so forth. So every organism which can be found in kingdom Monera, they have 1 cell. And this cell is the cell is a prokaryotic cell. It doesn't have an organized nucleus. It doesn't have the membrane. It doesn't have a mitochondria, that is the energy barrier. It doesn't have a chloroplast, so on and so forth. This kingdom Monera is furthermore being split into 2. It is subdivided into we have the cyanophyta, and that is an example of the cyanophyta. There is the nostoc, which can also be called the blue-green alga. And the second example, aside from the cyanophyta there, we have is a schizophyta. An example of a schizophyta is a bacteria. So this is all you need to know concerning the kingdom Monera. And do not forget, it is subdivided into 2 subdivisions, where we have the schizophyta, example, a bacteria, and the cyanophyta, example, the blue-green alga. Now we move to kingdom Protista. Every living organism which can also be found in kingdom Protista, also unicellular, they have 1 cell. But this particular cell is not. It is never a prokaryotic in nature. No, rather it is eukaryotic, a type of a cell that has a centralized nucleus, a cell membrane, a mitochondria, so on and so forth. And that is for kingdom Protista. Yeah, the major mode of reproduction in kingdom Protista is asexual means. But although some of them can equally reproduce through the fusion of gametes, do not forget that the cell of kingdom Protista is never prokaryotic as that of the kingdom Monera. Rather, it is eukaryotic because you have an organized nucleus, chromosomes, and cell membrane, and so on and so forth. Now, the kingdom Protista is split into 4 divisions or into 4 aspects, where we have the Euglenophyta as number 1, then we have the Protozoa as number 2, then we have the Chrysophyta as number 3, then finally we have the Pyrophyta. But in this particular kingdom, the Protozoans and the the Euglenophyta are the 2 major representatives of this particular kingdom, that is the kingdom Protista. Now, the Euglenophyta, do not forget, an euglena is the living organism, is the only living organism that shares both the characteristics of plants and animals. For example, an euglena has an eye spot, an euglena also has a gullet for the passage of food, and so on and so forth. This is the animal characteristics of an euglena. An euglena equally possesses the chloroplast that supplies the chlorophyll, which is used as a form of photosynthesis for green plants. It also has a pellicle for the flexibility, and so on and so forth. That is an euglena. It is the only living organism, and it also moves using the flagellum and so on. So it is the only organism that has both the characteristics of plants and also the characteristics of animals. And do not forget, we said that the 4 subdivisions of this kingdom called kingdom Protista are the Euglenophyta, the Protozoans, the Pyrophyta, and the Chrysophyta. Now, the Euglenophyta, I have given an example. The euglena it is an organism that belongs to this particular kingdom called the kingdom Protista. It is the only organism that shares both the characteristics of plants and animals. Now, when we talk about the protozoans, an example of a protozoa is an amoeba. There is another one we call the paramecium, the trypanosomes, and so on and so forth. There are some examples of organisms that belongs to these subdivisions of the kingdom Protista. They belongs to protozoans. Although some of them can move using the cilia, like that of a paramecium, and some of them can also move using what we call the pseudopodia or pseudopodium. That is for an amoeba. So these are some characteristics you need to know concerning the kingdom Protista. Now, when we go to kingdom fungi, for a long time ago, fungi are being classified alongside with plants because they share some characteristics with plants, but they are never plants. I take, for example, a mushroom or a yeast. A mushroom is an example of a fungi. So in details, fungi, they differ from plants because their cell, the cell wall, is not being made. It is not being made of cellulose as that of a plant. Rather, it is being made of chitin. So every organism that belongs to kingdom fungi is never a plant. Rather, we call them fungi. Okay, they are not green plants. That is to say, they are not green in color. They lack chlorophyll. They lack chloroplast. They do not have an organized root. Take, for example, a mushroom. When you uproot, when you rupture a mushroom, you discover that a mushroom, it doesn't have a root system. It's not a vascular plant. It doesn't have leaves. It doesn't have stem. It doesn't bear fruits. That is why a mushroom is never an example of a plant. Rather, mushroom and other fungi are classified under kingdom fungi. So their characteristics include they do not have a root. They are not true plants. Their cell is also eukaryotic. They are not green plants because they lack chlorophyll, so on and so forth. That is all you need to know concerning the kingdom of fungi. So when we go to kingdom plants, in this particular kingdom, we talk about plants. Yes, and do not forget that the cell wall of every plant is made of cellulose and not chitin, as that of a fungi. So when we talk about the kingdom plants, it is a kingdom for plants, and this kingdom it is subdivided into 3 subdivisions, where we have the Talophytas, and that the Talophytas, you talk about the algas. You have the red alga, you also call the Rhodophyta. Then we have the green alga, which can also call the Chlorophyta. Then we have the brown alga, so on and so forth, which can also be called the Phacophyta. So now, the kingdom plant is subdivided into 3 subdivisions, where we have the Talophytas, that is for algas. Mainly, you know that you see algas. The main habitat for algas is aquatic. You mainly see them inside the water. Apart from Talophyta, I told you there are 3. The other one is called what we call the Bryophytas. That is where you have an example like the liverwort and the moses. You probably say invascular plants. Then the last one we have there is the Trichophyta, where you have vascular plants. And the Trichophyta is furthermore subdivided into 2. where we have the spermatophyta, fruit-bearing plants and flowering plants. Then we have the pteridophytes that do not bear flowers. Then furthermore, the spermatophyta is furthermore divided into the gymnosperms and the angiosperms. That is concerning this particular classification of plants we call the spermatophyta. So in that of our classification of plants are being classified into three subdivisions: the talophytas, the bryophytas, and the trichophytas. And do not forget that the trichophyta is furthermore subdivided into the pteridophyta that do not bear flowers. They are non-flowering plants. Example, there is something called the water fin. It's an example of it. Then the other subdivision of this the trichophyta is the spermatophyta. That's they are vascular plants. They have organized root system, so on and so forth. So all these are things you need to know concerning the kingdom plant. Then finally, when we go to kingdom animal, we talk about all animals are being classified into this particular kingdom. Okay, are you with me? So in the kingdom animals, where we have the mollusca, we have the porifera, we have the echinodermatas, organisms that do not have a brain. We have the chordatas, we have the flatworms, so on and so forth. So meet you in our next video.